In this episode, Lorraine shares with us about the restrictive culture she was raised in that led to the series of unhealthy and toxic relationships that she experienced in her adult years. From a forced abortion in an abusive relationship to stalking and vandalism that resulted in a painful and draining court case, to a relationship that was based on a lie, Lorraine tells us about how she eventually broke the cycle by loving and respecting herself. Lorraine, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome with us.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Lorraine, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So originally, I am from Malaysia, and I've been in Australia for, about 15, 20 years now, give and take. So I'm residing in Australia and I'm based in Australia now.
Wow. What about in terms of like your personal identity? Do you identify more as an Asian or Australian?
I consider myself as a citizen of the world, actually, because I don't really like to label myself as a particular cultural background, to be honest. And I think because, like, culturally, my ancestors are from China, so I'm not really from China. But again, I'm also not really Malaysian because that's not where my family originated from. And again, I'm not really from Australia because I migrated here. So I consider myself as a traveler and a citizen of the world, really.
Yeah. The beauty of this day and age, right, is that you can belong everywhere yet nowhere at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, I totally love that. I think that that's there's a bit of an identity crisis that I've experienced myself because on the outside, I look one way. I was born and raised in Hong Kong, but whenever I tell people I'm from Hong Kong, I'm I'm a Hong Kong person. They're like, "No, you're not. You don't look Chinese." Like, "No, where are you really from?" And I'm like, "Are you asking about my ethnicity?" Because I don't really. I mean, I connect to it to an extent. I connect to it in terms of the food, the language,
Absolutely.
maybe, right? So, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So the same thing with me. Like in Australia, they're like, "Oh, so you're Malay." I'm like, "No, Malay is a culture, you know." So how do I label myself? So that's the tricky part of being a migrant in a sense.
Right. Yeah. What about, because I know like the Asian culture and mindset is very distinct and very different from that in the West. So in terms of like, again, I wouldn't maybe use the word identity, but what kind of mindset or culture do you sort of like connect with in a sense? Like the Asian style of like families being really close knit and reputation and image being really important and, career driven and meeting those milestones? Or would you say you're more individualistic and go by your own timeline?
For me personally, I take the good traits of every component. So the cultural sense from my heritage, I take the strong parts where we take the importance of family, and it's always, as they say, blood is thicker than water, as they say. So no matter what, family is always family. Even though I may not be close to them, family is still quite important for myself. For the Western side, like when I moved to Australia, was an eye opener because back in Malaysia, we're taught about memorizing it, followed by the book, and that's it. Don't question things. In Australia, they encourage you to question things. Be creative. Don't be thinking inside the box. So that's the great thing about the I don't know if you consider it as Western culture, but that's the culture we have here in Australia, and that's how my growth began. Is the whole concept of it's okay to question things because it's part of growing. It's okay to go beyond the borders because there's so much to learn out there.
Yeah, I love that. And I can imagine that being really trying on you as a being and your self identity for a while, because it's like, I see this at a distance and I admire it and I want it. However, man, there's some pull that's still kind of like taking me back to home. And how do I reach there? How do I become that person that I see so close to me and all around me, in a sense? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it took me a while of understanding that. It took me a while of accepting it and being to getting that courage to actually step out of what I knew and what I grew up with, and just understanding myself and what I really need for myself in order to find happiness, really.
Yeah. And I know, like, for a lot of Asians, there may be like problems at home or difficulties and challenges they face with their relationships with their parents, but it's not something that people really talk about on the outside too much. They try to keep it within the confinements of their home. Would you say that's true for you?
Absolutely. So the one thing I actually honestly thought that this was just the Asian culture in its sense, Chinese culture. But speaking with people, sharing stories and things like that, I find it's everywhere. You've got the Greek people, exactly the same story. You've got the Lebanese, also the exact same story, where you don't say too much because we want to perceive ourselves as the perfect family, and there's no problem within the family, where we're this high class status and everyone's supposed to be looking up to us instead of, oh, being the gossip of the town, so to
Hmm.
say.
Right. So at what point then did that change for you where you said enough is enough and I want to share my story and I want to get it out there?
I grew up really as an unhappy person. So it came to a point where I wasn't talking to anyone. I wasn't happy. I did not have a goal. I did not have a purpose. I was aimlessly doing things because I was told to do so. And everything I did was wrong. Everything just wasn't right. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, why did I question why did I ask those questions so many years ago, and I still ask questions. And analyzing myself, just thinking about that whole process, and I thought, okay, so what's next for me? Like, what's my purpose? Where do I see myself in, 20 years, 10 years, 50 years time? And that vision that I always saw is like, okay, it's bugging me. So if it's bugging me, that means that I need to somehow reach it, or maybe I'm meant to reach it. So with the whole personal development, the whole process of studying and understanding myself, was like, I thought, okay, no, my happiness is my life. Why should I be living my life being controlled? Because then I'm not happy. And I had problems sleeping. I had problem with my health. There were so many things that was wrong. So I took that path of, maybe if I tried something different, that my whole life would be happier. I would find peace. And here I am. I'm like, there's no point not sharing, because at the point where I was back in the day, with facing depression, facing all these problems, I just wanted to be heard. And I thought, okay, it would have helped me a bit more if I had a community of people where they understood me without being judged. And I thought, I could be that voice where it's a normal thing to feel the way that we feel. It's more about expressing yourself to be free, rather than keeping it to yourself and just injuring yourself more,
Hmm.
because you're containing all that negative energy within you. It's like so much gunk within you that you just need to release it, and just clear everything out.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said that for a while didn't really tell anyone about your story and you didn't really allow yourself to like release. So, you bottled a lot of things up, you felt a lot of depression. did you have any form of release, be it crying or be it, I don't know, like something that you would just do for yourself, journaling?
Journal, yes. But it came to a point where mom was reading my diary, you know? So as
My
they would
gosh.
back in the
Yeah.
day. No matter where I hid it. And back in the day, we wrote in our diaries. We didn't have a computer to write or
Yeah.
journal. And being a musician, I used to express myself through songs. So I wrote my music and I would write it in the middle of the night where no one was listening because it was more for myself.
Mm.
So that helped a lot in that expression. But I like to kind of code my songs to kind of not give it too much so people won't be able to tell in detail the problem that I'm
Yeah.
actually facing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting journey. So it's either that or people may find me strange because just I used to be really good with animals, and at one point I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I had dogs in the house. So I would just sit next to my dogs and cry to my dogs and tell them my how my day
Mm.
went because that
Yeah.
was my only source of release. We didn't have
Mm.
mobile phones back in the day, and for me, computer was we had limitations of the use of computer as well. So that was my only source was my
Yeah.
dogs at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your story? So where does it begin for you?
So my family is a very strict family where we are told we had to have careers such as being a doctor, a pharmacist, engineer, accountant, all those, high paid kind of jobs, or so they say, right?
Mm.
And that was the thought process, you had to be a doctor, you had to be a nurse, you had to be this high status job compared to being a musician. So when I finally decided I wanted to be a musician, was was when dad was like, "Oh, those are just for stupid people." But my
Mm.
mom being a musician, she goes, "No, it requires a lot of effort as well to get the qualifications as a musician." So I was brought up in that strict environment. Even in my mid 20s, was being the oldest of four, I still had a curfew, while my other three siblings did not have a curfew.
Mm.
So it's very different the way that I was brought up compared to my siblings. And through that, I started retracting a lot because I was always put at fault. I was always told that I was the problem. And that kind of followed through into my relationships. And I never knew that until my third relationship because it was always, oh, my ex is putting the blame where I'm bipolar. And I thought, no, that's not right. And then, I was always the one that was cheating apparently, but I wasn't. It was always a lot of finger pointing. So I always took that in. And even though I had problems with my relationship, I put it out there to my family that I was the one that was the problem, that created that problem in the relationship. And just thinking back about it, it's like, no, I'm not the problem. It's the fact that I was brought up where people always told me I was the problem, was where I adopted it.
When you were fairly young, there was an incident that happened. Um, can you tell our listeners a little bit about that with your cousin?
Yeah. So I'm not going to name him. And not many people know about this. So when I was about 5, 6 years old, people would come to my house to have piano lessons with mom. And I remember at that time I was having a shower as a 5, 6 years old, still wrapped in my towel. And at that time, my cousin finished his piano lesson and he came towards me. He is at that moment was about in his teens from memory. He snatched a towel of me and he was trying to do something towards me. And as a child, I freaked out, like, what the heck, right? So I ran around and he chased after me and I was freaking out. So I thought, okay, he was trying to molest me. And I thought, okay, if I screamed on top of my lungs, then my neighbors would come and save me because mom went out to the markets. So I was alone with my cousin. Ran around, no one came, and I was crying because I was scared. So if no one came, I had to find a solution of what to do. So I tried to hide, but he would always find me, be it in the cupboard, be it under the bed, wherever I could think of, he would find me. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, what's the next best thing? And the next best thing was the cane my parents used to beat me. That was my weapon.
Wow.
So I found the cane and he came close to me. He's like, no, I'm not gonna hurt you. And then when when I tried to believe him, he would try and touch me and things like that. And that was when I was like, no, I can't trust him. So I found the cane and then I started, swishing the cane around like a sword and hitting
Yeah.
him as hard as I could. I guess that hurt him really badly because then he just left the house and he walked home. And the thing I remembered about it was when he left the house that day, like I had to stop crying and brave up because I felt like it was my fault that happened. So mom didn't know about it. But the funny thing was, I became really quiet. And mom saw a problem within me. So she sent me to a child psychologist at that time. And I didn't understand why. I thought I tried to be the perfect daughter, but mom sent me to this child psychologist. And at the same time, my cousin locked himself up in his room for over a week. And I felt like it was my fault because he locked himself in the room. So no one knew about it, right?
Mm.
So I went to the child psychologist, wasn't happy, didn't understand why. Many years until my mid 20s, I opened this up to one of the counselors in college, in university here in Australia. And I was like, okay, in order to heal, I need to open up, right?
Mm.
So that was when I told my mom, I told my aunt that I was living in Australia, and I told my cousin, one of my cousins that I'm close with. The funny thing was, she told me that, oh, you actually told me when we were kids. And I never remember that. Yeah, I never remember that. And we never spoke about it ever again. So because I at that point in my mid 20s, I thought I was just imagining it. I thought maybe I'm just creating this story somehow or another after watching all these TV shows or something, right?
Mm.
Because no one else knew about it except me. But she was like, "No, you told me when we were kids." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm I'm not actually making this up.
Yeah.
So I told mom. Mom was gonna confront my aunt about it, but I didn't want to have that the relationship between sisters to be broken just because of that thing that happened back in the day. So I said, no, I would rather you not tell your sister about it. I mean, the past is the past, right? And we have to
Mm.
heal. So that was what happened. I see my cousin now, and I try not to talk so much to him because yeah, I don't respect him because of that. But
Mhm.
yeah, he's still family, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it's only really, you mentioned in your 20s, mid 20s, that you really started to like unravel all of that. So before that, it was kept between the two of you and nobody else knew. I guess you must have seen him around in those several years in between. Was it always that you just kind of tried to avoid him, or did you feel nervous around him, scared around? Do you recall how that was?
I was always around with cousins because my family's huge. So we always had cousins around.
Mm.
Uh, so I was always with my close cousin. But the thing was, he lived just down the road from where we are, well, where I lived. So with the whole concept of growing up, I think that was why the reason of me being so afraid of men was because of that. So
Mm.
that also took me a while to get over because I was afraid of having a male teacher. I was afraid of confronting males. I think that kind of originated from that whole episode of being violated as a young child in my own safe
Hmm.
place, so to
Yeah.
say.
And using that word safety, I can just imagine it being just so hard for you to even understand that concept of safety because you didn't feel comfortable to share it with your mom, and maybe you experimented sharing it with someone when you were that age, but it seemed like that was a topic that was just quickly brushed under the rug and then moved on. And the way that it was managed was get you to see a therapist or a psychiatrist without you even knowing or understanding why this is why am I seeing. So again, there's this self-blaming in that process. Something must be wrong with me. This is why they're making me see this. So safety itself must have been such a blurred concept for you because you're like, who do I direct this to? Who can I talk to about this? Or maybe it wasn't even something that occurred to you and it sort of manifested in a rather different way growing up, right?
Yeah, well, as a child, I always wanted to be the perfect daughter. So to say that there was something that was wrong in the background, I didn't want that to happen. At that particular time, that was my dad is a well recognized doctor in the area. Mom is a well known musician with the politicians and things like that. So there's also a reputation side of it. But as a young child, I didn't want to be a cause of the problem. Like that's just not me. Like for me, I wanted life to be happy. I didn't want any more problems than they were already. So like no one knew about it. It went on, and it was just me keeping to myself because I thought that that was the right thing to do at that time.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had some difficulty with just male figures around you after that. Can you tell me a little bit about the first, maybe like romantic encounter you had with a male, or even just friendship, where you actually said, okay, I'm going to allow these boys, men into my life?
So I would date people, but I would not put my whole in because I didn't want to be betrayed. I didn't want to be hurt the way that was in the beginning. And then I thought, okay, this is ridiculous. You have to try because
Yeah.
there have to be good men out there. And like I've seen it happen. I have good friends and they're males.
Mm.
My my close friends are actually guys compared to girls. So there is a possibility of there being a good guy out there.
Mm.
So I opened up, tried, gave it a go. It was difficult and cringy. Like it felt, yeah, very tense in regards to opening up and trying to trust someone.
Right.
But with that, I have had three bad relationships, I can say, that I've tried to invest in.
So that first relationship, would you say, other than that abortion, would you say that he was a good partner and you felt safe and comfortable around him, and it was that sort of changed your perspective on this person?
Look, when we first date, men usually or should be treating women respectfully. So that usually happens in the beginning. And I thought, oh yeah, sure, decent, right? Things start to change was when I didn't feel respected. I felt used. But I thought, no, you're just overthinking it. You know,
Mm.
you watch too much TV show, you're just overthinking it. You're in your mid 20s. So I broke it off two, three times. It was on and on. I think it's an on and on for all of them. So the first one, that was what happened. And then when I finally had the courage to break it off completely, was when I found myself pregnant.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So what happens then?
So that was a very difficult journey to take. So those of you that don't know or have never experienced it, it's one of the most difficult decisions that I've ever made. Because my parents grew up in a very strict religious and cultural background. So it's the double whammy of religious and cultural. So I took that into consideration. But the thing was, I had to make a decision for myself. So, I had to think about it. And for me, I always choose life. So I made that tough decision as a fresh graduate. I didn't have a full time job. I made that tough decision to go, no, it's my choice to keep the child no matter what. So I confronted the guy first. I said, just to let you know, that, you know, I'm pregnant. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You know, I don't want money. We can draft out a legal agreement. And I actually spoke to lawyers about it. I spoke to my one of my lawyers about it, and I said, "Can we draft something out?" And I had everything planned out. So I was like, "Okay, so the child is going to be Australian. She or he is going to be protected." At that time, I wasn't an Australian resident, so I was like, "It does not matter what happens to me, but I want everything to be for the child." So I had everything planned out, mapped out. I'm like, okay, you know, I don't have work, but it's gonna work out. You know, I thought my parents are strong Christian people, so they probably would support me, you know.
Yeah.
So I went down that route. I was like, okay, I need to confront my parents about this. And that took a lot of courage and guts too, because to I didn't want to lay the news on my parents. So I spoke to my sister about it first, and she laughed about it. You know how some people, when they're stressed, they laugh,
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah.
So she laughed about it. She was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And then I was like, okay, fine. I was like, all right, now the next person's mom, because she's more sensitive. So I spoke to mom, and she did not say anything. She didn't have much to say. I think she didn't know what to say.
Mm.
So she's like, you have to talk to dad about it. I was like, yeah, I know. But I was hoping that she could support me in some way. And then that didn't happen. So I spoke to dad, and I love my dad. So dad is the kind of person that would help anyone. So he has a medical practice, and the reason why he wants to be a doctor was because he loves helping people. And at the moment, he would charge the minimum of the minimum to any patient because that's what he wants to do. He wants to help them rather than, you know, earning the income. So that's that. If he could, he would treat people for free, but that's the way he is. But at that particular time, he didn't even want to hear about it. He was like, no, you're getting rid of it. I was like, no, my decision is I want to keep the child. And he was like, no, get rid of it, get rid of it. And like that broke my heart because I didn't have a full-time job. I'm a fresh graduate, had no money. My parents are not going to support me. My partner, ex-partner, is not going to support me, you know? And I didn't know what to do. So it's like, I'll think about it. My partner came back, and my partner was like, if you keep the trial, I will make it difficult for you to stay. If you keep the child, I'll tell your parents that you're a drug addict and that you are not a fit teacher. And I'll say that you use recreational drugs and all these bad things. And I thought, okay, you know, I didn't have a full-time job. I'm a teacher. What am I going to do? Right.
Wait, did this come off as a surprise to you, or were there signs that he had this kind of tendency to speak like that with you before?
No, absolutely not. So he was like, after the good luck with that, like he sent me a text message. He was like, good luck with that. What do you want me to do about the news? Good luck with that. And then 2 days later, he was like, I want to talk to you. I want to see how are you going. You know, he was this nice person
Mm.
suddenly again. So I was like, okay, fine. So I spoke to him, and then he threatened me. He's like, I'm not gonna let you go to work until you say you're gonna get rid of it. I was like, and I was bawling my eyes out. I couldn't go to work, and he wouldn't let me go to work. I was like, I'm not paying for it. You know, I was trying to find all excuses for him to back out, and I was like, I'm not paying for it. And he goes, I'll pay for it for the abortion. And I was still looking down the track with my family at that time. So I was like, fine, I'll just say I'll agree to it, but I'm gonna call my parents, and hopefully they'll, you know, come to my rescue. That didn't work out as well. So it was really stressful. I went for a blood test. The doctors was judging me. I had doctors that were judging me. I had friends. I spoke to a couple of friends about this. I had friends telling me that they would support me. But then when I said I was going through the abortion, they started, you know, being upset. Or if I said that I didn't want to go through the abortion, they were like, you know, you're being silly, you're being ridiculous, you're throwing your life down the drain. So, you know, I didn't really have much support in that sense. Mom flew over, and I thought she was there to support me. Mom is also a lovely person. She also loves helping people, mind you, everybody. But mom flew all the way from Malaysia, and I thought, okay, she really cares. And then she came to me one day and she goes, if you're too scared to go through the process, dad's given me some pills for you to take. That crushed my heart. Like,
Mm.
and I felt absolutely betrayed. I knew where she was coming from, but I felt really betrayed about it. So I just went along with it because I thought if I didn't go along with it, then if I end up wanting to go through an abortion, it would be a physical process of surgery rather than
Mm.
the pill itself. And I thought I didn't want to go through with that, with the surgical part of it. But at the clinic, even at the abortion clinic, the doctors were not understanding. The doctors were quite rude, actually. So it was not a very good experience from the beginning till the end, to be
Mm.
honest. Yeah, my ex-partner said that he would support me after I've done it. He said he would drop me off. He got his friend to drive since he couldn't drive. And then he just dumped me at the clinic and left.
My
And
God.
90% part of me wanted to just walk out of the clinic and hop on a train back home, but my feet wouldn't move. So that was what was eating me up inside, was the fact that I wanted to leave, but I couldn't move.
Mm.
So yeah, it's a very difficult process. And even with the healing, it was like I was crying, I was upset. Mom told everyone that I was just upset that I had a broken relation, like I broke up with my partner and things like that. So no one actually knew about it except for the few people. I remember going home and I didn't want to have anything to do with the church because I thought I connected my parents to church, right?
Mm.
So I didn't want to have anything to do with religion because I thought that it was hypocritical for them to do what they did. But that was me at that time. And I remember my dad was like, it was your decision to have the abortion. And yeah,
Like,
that,
really?
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. So I screamed on top of my lungs. I was like, I don't care if your neighbors hear about this, but this is definitely not my decision, which
Mm-hmm.
is why I'm very upset because my decision was to keep it, but you guys are the one, la di da,
Mm.
yelled it all out. And hence why my relationship with my dad especially is not very close, is because of one of those reasons, is because of this.
Mm. Man, like that's just so difficult. It's like on the one hand, you're fighting to keep this child and fighting for a little bit of help and support, and then you're told you don't have a choice. It's got to go, and then you do it, complying, and then you're told, well, that was your choice. And you're like, what do I even do with this information right now? Like, so now I have to deal with this and maybe self blame more, or take responsibility for something that I never even wanted in the first place.
Absolutely. And then I had friends going, why did you do it? They were questioning me and not being supportive. It's like, who do I go to? But I woke up one day and I thought I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleep, I was going to bed, sleeping. I just wanted to sleep it off. And it was difficult because I'm a teacher. So I saw kids every single
Oh
day. And sometimes I
man.
was like, I need to go to the toilet, and I would just cry in the toilet because
Mm.
I'm I have kids there like in front of
Yeah.
me, and I'm in this situation where I can't have my own. I can't protect my own, right? So it was so bad where I lost a lot of weight. I wouldn't eat. I refused to eat. When I came back from work, I would go straight to bed. Didn't want to have anything to do with anything. And then I woke up one day and I was like, no, this is not right. So the next thing was I woke up one day and I was like, okay, I need to heal, but how? I reached out to different communities because I knew my family, my friends weren't the ideal people to go to. Reached out to communities. Again, I was hitting a lot of brick walls. I called Lifeline. They were like, "Oh, if you're not in a verge of harming yourself, then we can't help you." So,
So
and
disappointing.
I called his mom. I called his mom because I just needed to release. I needed to have someone listen to me. She helped me a little bit because she didn't know the whole story. So, and I couldn't speak. So I wrote a letter and I handed it off to her to read while I stood there. So she was comforting. Is that a word to use? She was
Yeah.
comforting in a sense because she's actually also a teacher. So she understood it. She said, she apologized genuinely. She was like, I really feel sorry for you that, and I understand that my son has a responsibility of a 5-year-old. I still remember the words that she
Yeah.
used. But, she said that you can be stronger, and you will be stronger. And I thought, everyone always says you will be stronger and you'll grow up stronger. What the hell do you know?
Yeah. Like, what does
As
that
the
mean?
process.
How do I do that? Like,
Yeah.
thank you for telling me I will get there, but now can you tell me what are the steps to get there?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it's easier said than done. Hello.
Yeah.
So I open up. I'm like, I need a life change. I need to heal. I need to be able to be confident about myself. And this was with a guy who owned a modeling agency. So I envisioned my life like Ugly Betty. If you know that story
Yeah.
of this
Yeah.
of this secretary in Vogue kind of
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah.
So I imagine it like that, but no, it's completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite work that way. So,
No.
what was this? Can you tell us a little bit about the second relationship then of yours?
So the second relationship, it was very controlling. So I had my teaching job at that time, and this time I had a strong part-time job. So quite a solid position, was better than before. And I would help him in his business, but not be paid because we were apparently in a relationship, right? Because we're in a relationship, it's not like I demand for money. So
Oh my
I'm doing it
gosh.
out of love.
Mm.
And then because he owned a modeling agency and he was very social, so I had to be social as well. But because I was social, his friends were hitting on me, and men were interested in me because it was a modeling agency, for goodness sake. And that's how you get clients, was by being friendly and
Mm.
chatting with people. But he saw it like it was my fault. So we would have a lot of arguments because of that, because guys were interested in me. But he wouldn't tell people that we were in a relationship, so to say. Yeah,
Mm.
right? It
Why
was a bit
though?
strange.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then we would fight on the street, and then it would be loud. And then he would say, "Oh, you're bipolar." And I'm like, I don't understand. So it was a lot of that. And I would work after my hours and then help him out in his business after hours. So I wouldn't have enough sleep, so to say. But he was telling me which friends to see. He was telling me which friends not to see. He was trying to push me to make friends with his models. It was boring. I like the hospitality side of it, but it was a lot of problems. And even with seeing his family, he's like, "Oh, you have to give me my drink. You have to give me my food." I'm like, hang on a second. I work too. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be a give and take relationship.
Hmm.
But he was very demanding in that sense.
And you took it for how long? How long did it take for you to be like, nope, enough is enough. I draw my boundaries.
3 years as well.
Wow, that's
There
a
was three with the other
long
one and
time.
three with this one. Yeah. Yeah, it was getting up that courage. So it was building up that courage to go, no, enough is enough.
Hmm.
Because it was 1 year, and then I remember going, no, I deserve better. And then it's like, maybe, it was gathering up that courage to go, nah, enough is enough. So the last of it was when I'm like, nah, we're never getting back together. That was horror because he didn't return my keys, and I was seeing another person at that time, but he had my house keys. So he came over to my place uninvited. So that led up to him almost in a fight with the other guy that I was newly dating. Yeah,
He knew well and clear that the relationship was done for life. And it was not like he had.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm like, no way in hell we're getting back together. Like, no way. I've given you, he goes, oh, I can change. I'm like, no, I've given you 3 years to change, and that has never happened. So there's no way this is going to happen. I have to move on. So like with him catching me dating somebody else, like it went it's crazy. Like just hearing about it, me saying it would be very crazy. It was a whole storyline of him calling me saying that some debt collector has called him up saying that I owe money, but he would save me. And the only argument was that I would have to marry him and then I would be financially free because I know he would stay at home and be a stay at home dad and he knows that I want kids. I'm like, no, you're not a father material. That's not gonna happen.
Mm.
At that time I was seeing a psychic. I just wanted to have a level of comfort. So, sometimes back in the day I used to see a psychic, like different psychics. And he found that out. So he pretended to be this psychic living above my apartment. He created this whole email address. He created at that time I was fighting for the homeowners corporation in my building because I owned my apartment, and we are trying to get rid of the property manager and things like that. So I was kind of in strike with the community. So I was doing a lot of things as well. And he took that to his advantage where he broke into my apartment. He stole signed documents from homeowners that I have been collecting. He called me on one day. He goes, "Oh, the federal police thinks that because you're door knocking, they think that you have come across this Chinese person that has stolen some jade from some Chinese museum back in China." And I'm like, what's going
What?
on? Yeah. Yeah. So it spiraled in that sense. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. And then suddenly this woman calls me up and goes, "Your visa has been cancelled. You can no longer stay in Australia. Please call this number," or whatever. And yeah, the story kept changing and changing, and I didn't understand what was happening. And then he pretended to be so many other people. He stalked me. He would deflate my wheels, my cars, which cost a lot of money to change. He would stalk me to my work. He would also the same thing. He would damage my car wheels. And there was one point he would put fish bait on the car ventilation just to make things horrible for myself. So it was quite terrible in the sense that I was spending a lot of money for this, and I wasn't even living in my own apartment. So I was living at friend's place. There was nothing that I could do to protect myself because researching it in Australia, and you're not really allowed to have pepper spray, if I'm not
Oh.
mistaken. So yeah, you can't do anything except for a whistle. You can't even have your high heel
Oh.
and injure someone from memory because I remember looking into it. Like I may be mistaken because that was so many years ago, but I remember looking into it where I could not actually literally protect myself, and the police would not protect me. So I didn't know it was a very scary situation to live in where even the authorities would not protect me in that sense. So what I did for money was I would Uber drive. So that was when Uber driving just came into the market. I would Uber drive when I could for extra cash to pay for my wheels, right?
Mm.
And there was one time I picked up a lawyer and I'm like, okay, it's good for have like free advice, right, from a lawyer.
Yeah.
So I told him my story. I'm like, what should I do? Because I need to fight for my rights. I need to fight to have myself protected. So he could not help me as much as just giving me advice because he was working for the government, like pro bono stuff, but he knew a friend. So he suggested a friend to hopefully help me out. But at that time, I had a bunch of lawyers that was willing to do it pro bono for me. After the first court case, the lawyers was like, no, I would say just pay and plead guilty. It's like, no, if I'm innocent, I'm innocent. I'm not going to pay for something where I know I'm innocent, right?
Mm.
So
Why would they
went
ask
back
you
to
to
that other lawyer.
plead guilty though?
I think it's because they don't think they can win the case.
Hmm.
Was my view. I may be mistaken, but I think that was the feeling that I got. So I went to this other lawyer. I said, "Could you help me because I don't know what else to do, and I know legal fees is going to cost a lot. Like in Australia, everything is expensive." And I know legal fees is very expensive. So he helped me. We went to court. The police was standing outside. I was in the safe room and he was right outside the safe room. And the police would not say anything or do anything. They would just allow him to be right outside the safe room. My lawyer came in because my ex was also claiming to have sole rights to my dog. And he claimed that I stole a lot of money. He claimed a lot of things. So there was a lot of cases that I had to go to because he was lodging it in different courthouses, which means that I had to go to different courthouses to plead my innocence. So he was harassing me outside the safe room. The lawyer came in and he goes, I'm taking all your cases because I think he's just a douchebag. So in a sense, he that lawyer was
Wow.
my savior in a sense.
Mhm.
He helped me a lot. It was this whole trial lasted for 2 years. So
Wow.
I understand how women or people would end up, being physically harmed and would end up wanting to end their life was because this took too long. Like the whole legal system took too long in the protection of the innocents. I didn't have anyone. So friends didn't know about this. My relatives didn't know about this. I was alone in a safe room, and a bunch of women saw me, and they're like, you're by yourself. Do you have anyone to go with you to these courthouses? And I said, no. And it just so happened they were like, that's okay. We're with a bunch of women, and we actually support other women with them in the courthouses, just to support them. So I had free support. They say we're not actually supposed to support you because you're not come through the system by the police, but we are here to help you. So, I'm lucky, lucky in a sense,
Yeah.
but I think it's a blessing. I honestly think it was a blessing with the situation that I'm in, with things happening. And I think it's humbling as well to see that there are good around bad things. There are
Right.
good among evil.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My God, there's just so much to this story. I mean, you went through vandalism, stalking from a person that you once loved. You were there's just so many things about this story that yeah, it's a lot. I imagine you experiencing quite a lot of trauma on this. Like, did you ever like do anything like see a therapist?
I saw a therapist about another issue, but to me it all links up, right? So with this one, like he tried to defame me. He wanted to steal my businesses. Like at that time, he created websites with fake photos about me with drugs and things like that. Was trying to defame me. And from a sense, my reputation actually saved me as well because people knew me already back in my young age. And they were like, no, you're not coming close to Lorraine in this school environment. If you step ground, this is private property. And they defended me up to a certain extent. Like he even tried to call the Music Teachers Association trying to defame me at that time. And the president then was like, you know, F off, you know,
Wow.
don't call back, like F
Yeah.
off. So me as a young woman, a very quiet young woman, to be protected up to a certain extent, like that was amazing. I was trying to hide my cars in petrol stations, speaking to mechanics. I'm like, can I leave my car here because this is the situation I'm in. I don't want my car to be vandalized. And they were like, yeah, sure, leave your car here. And
Oh.
yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Like with me in the city, yeah, it's been amazing where you have good, genuine people around you, even though we come across with trauma and devastation, right?
Right.
So I see that it's not like I shun away all the nice people and the good in people. Is I accept that as well, and I think that's a glimpse or a ray of or a silver lining in a sense of a possibility of more, and there that I'm in the wrong track, and I have to realign myself correctly into a
Yeah.
journey where I have to be.
Yeah, no, and I can see that like in you. There's just so much positivity in you despite everything. And you have like every time we speak as well, you have a little giggle, you have a little jump in your step, and to have to go through all of that, I for me, I just think if something like that, if I had lived anything close to that, would I be able to, see the bright side? But you were able to sort of turn around and be like, okay, this was a really, really difficult situation, and I'm not discounting that. However, on the other side, so many people pulled through for me and, helped me through the situation, and gotta be grateful for that. Gotta like pay attention to that side as well, which is really cool. What happened to this guy when you won the case? Where did he was he in jail?
So so funny thing was, I won the case. Like, the judge was like, "Don't be ridiculous. Just drop it. Like, you're stupid. This case is dropped." Because I had 10 witnesses outside ready to testify for me. Well, he had no one. He was trying to make excuses up. And the judge was like, "No, this is just ridiculous." In the end, I'm like, "Where were you all my life? Like,
Yeah.
where were you all this 2 years, right?"
Mhm.
So it was all dropped. We won the apprehensive apprehensive violence order, so to protect me. So I was like, okay, everything's in line, I'm protected, I don't have to pay any ridiculous things. He wanted his things back, so I got his brother, as a buffer to receive his things back, although the brother was like, "No, just pay him the money." I'm like, "No, if he wants the things back, just take it back."
Mhm.
I was at that time in the US for a friend's wedding. On Christmas Day, a friend contacted me because she knows I knew her through him, and she contacted me and she goes, "Oh, he died of a heart attack on Christmas Day." And I'm like, "No, that's bullshit. Like, I think he's just trying to get my attention, but he actually did." So the way that I look at it, it's karma. I don't like to say it. It's karma. But
Mhm.
I remember telling his brother, when before this whole thing went south, I told his brother, I said, "I can see him deteriorating. If you could look out for him, it would be good." And at that time, also, I remember his dad was begging me, actually telling me to move on. Like, his dad was like, "I don't think my son's right for you. You got to find someone else." The father's a sweetheart, so that's why I'm like, okay, you've got a nice father, you've got nice brothers. There's no chance you being the evil one, right?
Yeah. It's like one of those things where sad for him, but in a sense, what did you think in the sense that like do you feel like you got the justice that you hoped for?
I felt easier
Mm.
because the AVO only lasted 1 year, and then I had to reapply it because the police were not the one that issued it. So I felt easier and safer. I I felt sorry for the family because the family is close. So I wanted to visit the family, or thought about it, but I thought no, because of the whole situation, I don't think I should.
Mm.
And then I heard news that there was some money left behind in a will for me, but his daughters fought against it for me not to receive anything. So I was like, nah, it's not worth it. It's
Mm.
not worth to get the money, you know. It's just not worth the hassle anymore. Like, just let it go, honestly.
Mm. Yeah, there is definitely this little trend that I'm picking up on a little bit here, which is during the transition, which means you probably hadn't fully healed or given yourself the time to heal before you moved into the next relationship. And maybe in that state of mind, you're vulnerable and you're somewhat hoping, expecting something from the next relationship, as opposed to just going in it, you know, just because, right? So,
Well, I guess I wanted to move on, and my thought process is you move on by finding someone better. But I guess my guard was down because the past relationship just kept coming back. So I didn't have a clean slate. Even though I wanted
Mm.
that clean slate, I wasn't given the opportunity of having the clean slate. So I think that was what was happening was because I didn't have a clean slate. My guard was down and I didn't pick up signs where I should have or could have.
Right. How was that relationship?
It was good for the first year, and then there was moments where I questioned myself. I'm like, nah, he's gonna have other women. I felt like he had other women because there was times where I couldn't reach him, and I'm like, no, he's with other women. And I was right. At the end of the day, I was right. He was 3, 5 timing all of us women because I found those other women as well. Yeah. So he would tell me half the story, and it just didn't seem right. He, yeah, it was like a fairy tale in the beginning. Like he was sweet. He would cook me stuff. He was a good cook compared to the other two. So I'm like, okay, this is different, right? We would go on trips, like he would drive me to certain areas. And then it started changing on the second year where he would make really weird comments, such as, oh, you want me to drive because you want me to pay for petrol rather than you pay for petrol. Or or he would say things like, oh, my dog walker is interested in me and all these weird women are interested in me. And I'm not interested in them at all. It's like, okay, that's a bit weird. And then when we're in the car, there would be, when people call you, you would have the caller ID on the car. There will be all these women's caller ID on it. I'm like, oh, this is strange. And he wouldn't pick it up in front of me. Like I would pick up a call if I was in front of him because I'm open, right?
Mm.
In a relationship, you have to give and take. You have to be open to have a successful relationship.
Mm.
And he wouldn't pick up a call in front of me. But there were times where I would hear him say, oh, yeah, I love you too. I'm like, that feels a bit strange to say it to somebody else, right?
Right.
So I never met his parents or his mom. I met his daughter. Like his daughter took a liking of me, but this was with another previous one of his relationship. And it was strange. Like I had enough of it with the second year. I'm like, nah, enough is enough. But he knew I wanted to be serious. So he was like, let's get married. I'm like, okay. But at that time I wasn't as excited as I thought I would. I didn't really see much of marriage at that time. I I just wanted to be a commitment between two people, respect and commitment between two people. But he wanted to have this whole celebration thing. He made a comment of, oh, when you have a wedding, people give you money and you end up earning more money than spending. I'm like, oh, that's not the right thing to think about, know?
Yeah, that's odd.
But I'm very particular about money. And I'm starting to notice that my cash was disappearing. And he somehow had cash on him sometimes. So it was a questionable thing. But it came up to the state where the third year was he just disappeared and he came back with a ring. And I found money disappeared. So I keep telling people, I'm like, yeah, I bought myself my own wedding ring because money disappeared, right? But the thing was, he was stealing money, and when I kicked him out, he refused to leave my apartment. So he came up to a state where he would strangle me. He would take my phone. So I had no way of communicating out. Like I would scream when he was trying to hurt me, and my neighbors again wouldn't come through even though I screamed. It came to a state where he would drink alcohol and then be abusive towards me, and there was nothing I could do. The what was the out was having a dog because you have to walk the dog for pee break, right?
Yeah.
So I walked my dog Tilly, and he wanted to follow me. So he followed me, and at that time I screamed, I'm like, don't you dare touch me. And at that time I was lucky because there was this army guy that came back from service, like he had a break from service. And he came out the balcony and goes, oi, stop it. And then he actually came down instead of just screaming. So that was a chance of me of getting out of that relationship, was when we called the cops. The cops again told me they couldn't do anything about it unless I've got proof of violence. But he was careful. Like there was no marks on me, although, I felt pain. There was no marks on me. And then at that same time, he had my keys again. So I changed my lock like 3 times out of all these relationships. He had my keys, broke in. I called the cops, and then I was trying to get my keys away from him. Was when we had a struggle, and he scratched me. Was when I started bleeding. That was the call for the cops to go. No, you have to have the apprehensive violence order. So that was an automatic apprehensive violence order. Was from that.
Mm.
That was at that journey. I got in touch with his wife. Was when I found out that his wife was still his wife, and he refused to sign the divorce papers. From that to apprehensive violence order, he refused. He kept calling me. We went to court. He never showed up. So the police were looking out for him. They couldn't find him because he didn't have a place to stay. A year later, I was over him, wasn't thinking about him. A woman contacted me, and apparently he used the same ring he gave me and stole it back from me and proposed to her so that he would have free lodging, so
Oh
to
my
say.
gosh. What is an apprehensive violence order? What does that mean? So does that mean jail time? Does that mean like is it like a restraining order?
Yeah, it's a restraining order. So it's supposed to protect the person. I think you guys call it restraining order. Yeah, we
Right.
call it apprehensive violence order here. So yeah, the following year I got a call from the woman, and we were trying to piece the connections together. So we got in touch with the woman before me, and at the same time, before I broke up with him, was when I found out that he was searching for other women as well. At the same time with being with me, so I gave him the ultimatum. I'm like, it's either me all in or out you go.
Mm.
And he would go into my computer, he would delete important stuff. It wasn't a very, it came up to a point where I had my handbag next to the toilet every time I took a shower because I
Mm.
didn't trust him at all. Like it was that bad.
My
Like no one
God.
should be living a life with a handbag next to the toilet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it came up to the stand. We were going to bring him to TV, like that TV show with the Tinder swindler thingamajig. But was when my mentor was like, no, you shouldn't plaster your face over social media because you're an educator. So I took a step back. I can't because my students are going to see it. And there goes my job at that time. Now I'm like, no, like people need to hear it, no matter what the reputation is, no matter what the career is. Like, how much can that damage my career? I don't know.
Mm.
But if people can hear it, then if they're in a similar story, then to me, there's always hope. Whatever situation there is, it may seem at that point of no way of leaving that dark place, but there's always hope because I remember trying to end my life too because I tried to escape and I couldn't escape. I was trapped. I tried to overdose and my body just wouldn't let me overdose. Yeah, it was a situation where I had to continue fighting to find a way out so that I can find my happiness, so to
Yeah.
say. But yeah, it's interesting. Like it's
In order to protect yourself, you kind of have to like step back and look at it at a distance and be like, wow, if only that was a movie. Like I would sit and I would watch that. Oh, hold on a minute. This is
that's a
my
story
life.
plot, right?
Yeah,
It sounds
exactly.
so it sounds really unreal. And
Mm.
then the third year following through, the ex after me gave me a call and she found another victim following her. And the
Mm.
same story again. The year after that, I'm trying to get rid of this past, right? And they just keep
Mm-hmm.
coming back to me. The year after that, the police called me and they're like, "Oh, we found him. We need you to attend court
Right.
to
Testify.
testify against him because we finally caught him." I'm like, "That's like 4 or 5 years ago." And he's like, "Yeah, unfortunately, that's how the system goes."
Yeah.
Okay. Went to court. He never showed up. So they had to arrest him because he didn't show up. But, I'm trying to get past all this and they just kept coming back. So I'm like, no, you got to have a clean slate before you see anyone else. You can't do this.
Mm. So saying
So
that
yeah.
means at this point you're not seeing anyone?
No, I mean, I tried to get back into the dating scene after being single for 3 years or 2 years, can't remember. So back again. And at that point, we suddenly went into lockdown because of COVID, right?
Mm.
So I'm only chatting with this person we couldn't meet. I wasn't aware, but the story went on and on where he ended up conning me for an online scam of this online trading. It turned out to be the website was fake. And then I was just putting money into a fake website. So it came to a point where I lost my six-figure savings to that online scam.
Oh my gosh.
And that was during lockdown in Australia, where we're not even allowed to leave our houses. I don't know how bad it is in the other parts of the world, but we could not leave our house at all for 6 months in 1 year, and then the next 6 months in the following year as well.
Oh my gosh.
And I was going crazy. Like I need human contact. Like
Yeah.
I'm teaching online,
Yeah.
for 6 months. I mean, Tilly loves it, but 6 months lockdown and then another 6 months. Oh man, like that was going crazy. So anyway, I had my guard down as well because I was trying to expand my business. Lost six figures of my life savings. At that point, I had a different path in life in my future. But yeah, and then I decided after that, I was like, no, I needed to change things. I needed to do something different. And I know what to pick out now because of all my experiences. I know what to look out for
Mm.
now. And since then, it kind of taught me a lesson where you got to trust your instinct, because your intuition and your instincts are one that catches all these things. If you start questioning it, go for the hills
Mm.
is what I look for. And because of that six figures, losing that six figures pushed me or shot me in a direction where I never thought myself of going. So I never thought myself of even speaking to you. I thought myself of being a single parent living in some weird area where no one knew you, just being a single parent, living off your savings and bringing up a child that you want, getting a sperm donor. I even asked a friend, I'm like, could you be a sperm donor? And that was really uncomfortable to ask. Like, it was really weird to ask.
Yeah.
I had everything planned out. And to me, I see it as the universe telling me this is the wrong path. So that was when I started understanding myself. And if you ask me a question of, would you go through all that you have gone through? I would say yes in a heartbeat,
Mm.
because I wouldn't be the person I am today without all those experiences.
Yeah. No, I like that. I love that I'm just so inspired by the fact that despite all adversity that you face, you can still kind of look at it on this bright side. You've taken so much away from that. You listen to your gut, you listen to your instinct, you still look forward positively, you still have hope for things. I just find that so amazing. Like, resilience is real here, like with you. Lorraine, I'm gonna end this interview with one last question, which is, from your experience, given everything that you've been through and all the trauma, how do you think, and again, if we've got listeners here who can relate to some kind of toxic or traumatic relationships and partners, how do you think our listeners can work through healing?
Healing takes time. If you have supportive people, I would say stick with them. For myself, I stuck with the vision that I could see. So I always see myself as being happy. I always saw myself as having the life that I want. It's just I never trusted that. I learned to trust my instinct towards everything. And I advise people to learn to trust their instinct and learn to trust their inner voice. Because for me, it's yourself knowing your future. It's yourself leading towards what you should be leaving rather than where you are currently at. With relationship, I say don't force it, because I've got young people going, oh, my friends are all getting married and I'm still single. I'm like, girl, live your life. You've got all your life to live.
Yeah.
If he is meant to be there tomorrow, he will be there tomorrow. If he's meant to be there in 10 years' time, he will be there in 10 years' time. You don't have to force marriage. You don't have to force a relationship. For me, I'm in my late 30s. If the man of my life is going to be in my life in my 50s, then I'm going to wait till I'm 50 to find him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not stressed about it because I've got a life to live. And if I can do and create an impact now, I would just follow through with it. I'm not stressed of finding a partner. Like, I know my partner's not in Australia, but that's just me. And that's my intuition telling me that.
Yeah.
So I'm trusting my gut, but that doesn't tell me not to date anyone. If I've got the time, if I feel like I want to get to know someone, I would. But yeah, don't force it. Don't be caught up with what other people have. Don't be stuck with that. I would say just trust yourself and just go according to your flow, because everyone's flow is different.
Yeah. And in the same vein, what kind of red flags should we be looking out for?
the biggest would be if you start questioning things,
So
then yeah,
going back to that gut feeling, right? When you start feeling like something's,
absolutely.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. If you start questioning yourself, if you start questioning it once, okay. If you start questioning yourself twice, can I think about it? If you start questioning yourself third time, then nah, it's not meant to be.
Right. No, I really like that advice. I think that usually our gut is telling us something. It's screaming something at us. And again, it may be different for different people. It might be an issue for one person and a non-issue for someone else. But again, remembering that when your gut is telling you that, it's your gut's way of protecting you from experiencing the worst of it. So yeah, again, one person's red flag, a red flag for me could be very different for someone else. Like it's a non-issue for another person, right? Maybe because they have a personality type that can handle that differently, or or something. But yeah, just like really looking within. There is no one rule about a red flag in a sense, right?
Yeah. So, if people say you're overreacting, I would say, no, there's a reason why you're questioning things, It's either he can prove you wrong, or, you can sort it out, and then there's no problems after that, or there's a reason why you're questioning it.
Yeah.
So it's not you overreacting, it's the fact that you picked up something, you actually picked up something. Then, it's two ways. You either work on it and then, happy days, or something's wrong and you just have to leave. And it's okay to move on. If you've got 5 kids with him, and you've always been a housewife, you can move on. I've come to a place where I've lost 6 figures, and I'm still here with my businesses and things like that. Things can happen if you really put your mind to it. Things can happen if you look for it and you make it happen. It may be difficult because that's not your comfort, that's not your norm. But the thing is, if you vision yourself, like, the question I'll ask is, would you rather be happy poor, or would you rather be upset rich? Is what I ask people. And for me, I would rather be happy poor if I could.
Yeah.
Not intending that I want to be poor.
Yeah.
But I would rather be happy but poor.
Yeah. No, I really like that. That's a really good way to put it. Because then you're rich in other ways. You're rich in life. You're rich in joy and contentment, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for being with us today. This was just such an amazing conversation. And you're such an inspiration.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
If you enjoyed the episode and would like to help support the show, please follow and subscribe. You can rate and review your feedback on any of our platforms listed in the description. I'd like to recognize our guests who are vulnerable and open to share their life experiences with us. Thank you for showing us we're human. Also, a thank you to our team who worked so hard behind the scenes to make it happen.
Joe Mills,
Chris Trzynski, Stefan Menzel.
The show would be nothing without you. I'm Jenica, host and writer of the show, and you're listening to Multispective.